Today, we're looking at true stories from the r/stories subreddit. I shit my pants on a first date. This was a few months ago. I was on a first date with a girl from Tinder. We both live near the beach, so we decided to grab a coffee and go for a walk along the water. About halfway into our date, my bowels decided it was time to evacuate. I think it was the coffee mixed with nerves. I tried so hard to hold it in, but a bit managed to slip out, just enough to relieve the pressure. I stuck my hand down my pants while she was distracted to check for the damage, which was a bad idea. Nearly my whole hand ended up being covered in some of the most foul-smelling substance I think I've ever produced. Good God, this can't be real. I had no other option but to run into the water. Luckily, it was a hot day and I was wearing swimming shorts. I managed to clean off most of the shit, but the smell still lingered. This was when I started scrubbing my hands furiously into the sand, trying to remove the scent. She asked me what I was doing and I just laughed and said, "Sand is such a great exfoliator, you should try it too." Needless to say, that was the first and last date we went on. Oh my god. Always make sure you go for a shit before a date, especially a first date. Unfortunately, there's a similar story in the comments by Ordinary Junket. One time I was with this chick and we went shoe shopping and I decided we should go to Taco Bell after I had been sick the day before. Then proceeded to blow up my pants on the way to the bathroom. So we went to Walmart to get me some new undies, and as we're walking she goes, "I don't know how else to say this and I'm really not trying to embarrass you, but there's a very visible shit stain in the middle of your ass. You might need to get some jeans too." She is now my wife. We will have been married a year next week. Well, I'm glad she didn't hold it against you. These posts have honestly really put me off eating on a date. Too much can go wrong. Shitting myself is not something I'm willing to risk. I was forced into a cosmetic procedure. This happened when I was 12. I had just gotten my braces off and the dentist was getting rid of the glue on my teeth. After he was done, he said, "I shaved down your canines while I had the grinder out to make them look more feminine." More feminine? Who ever saw someone's teeth and thought they looked masculine? I asked what he meant and he lifted up a mirror. I had fairly sharp canines growing up that I really liked, and he'd shaved off a good amount and made them rounded instead of sharp. He said that boys would like me more, and that he made me more feminine and pretty. That seems really odd. I've never known of this feminine trait of having rounded canines. He didn't ask me about it, he just did it. Forever altered my teeth without my consent because I was female. I went home and cried. I didn't know how to tell my parents, so I didn't until much later, and it was way too long after to do anything about it. I was 12, so I don't blame myself, but I do wish I had stood up for myself. I'm still pretty upset about this 10 plus years later because it just shows how girls get treated sometimes and the lack of bodily autonomy I was given. I hope it doesn't happen to anyone else. A lot of people in the comments say they've had this happen too, where the dentist will do it and tell them after. I've honestly never heard of anything like this. They also say that as you get older, your canines wear down anyway, so surely if there's any characteristic attached to this, it's making you look older, which I'm sure nobody wants. PSA, if you're getting dental work, make sure they know you're happy with the pointiness of your teeth. I thought she took me to the restroom to have sex. I was wrong. In college, I met a girl at a house party. We drank and talked, drank and talked, drank and talked, started kissing, tongues and all. She asked me to go to the restroom with her. Of course, I said yes. She took me by the hand and led me away. I went in first and she shut the door behind her and locked it. I was certain things were about to go to the next level. She said, "Hang on," unzipped her pants, and sat down on the toilet. I thought she had to pee. Then she grunted. I heard a fart, then a plop. I unlocked the door and ran. Never saw her again. That's so mad. I wouldn't do that in a cubicle with anyone, let alone someone you just met at a house party. Does she hate you? Was she trying to punish you? A lot of people in the comments saying she was trying to make room for you. I think if that's the case, she could probably do that without you there. I accidentally shit the bed in front of my boyfriend. Don't read this if you have any problems with feces. Well, I think I can assume anyone who's still listening probably doesn't have a problem with that. Me, 18F, had just gotten in a relationship with my new sweet boyfriend, 20M. A little info about me. I have a chronic stomach wound which pops up whenever I'm really stressed. The relationship was very new, so we were both still quite shy. We had just gotten comfortable enough farting in front of each other and would make a joke out of it. About a month into our relationship, I had to go to the hospital with my stomach wound. I was there for a week and he was super supportive the whole time. When I finally got home from the hospital, my body was so weak. I wasn't allowed to drink or eat anything the whole week because of the tests they had to make. Therefore, my body had pretty much shut down. Nothing had come in, so nothing had come out. I got prescribed some laxatives that I took. Never having taken them before, I didn't know what to expect, but it definitely wasn't this. We were laying in bed, I was on my side looking at my phone, and he was half sitting up in my bed playing RuneScape on his laptop in front of me. I could feel a fart coming, so I looked up into his eyes with a smirk face expression and said, "I'm shitting." I meant to say I'm farting, but the words came out wrong, and so did something else. The moment I said it, I let it all out. Still with a smirk face expression and looking him right in the eyes. How was your boyfriend not mentally scarred by this? You just looked him in the eyes, told him you were going to shit yourself, and did it. You could hear, oh god, a wet bubbly sound, and I instantly knew what had happened. My smile faded and turned to a face of horror. My hand flew down to stop the flow, but it was too late. My boyfriend jumped up and ran to the toilet to bring me paper. He helped me clean up while just laughing hysterically. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even say anything. I think you've said enough. Later, we sat and talked, and he told me it was the most intimidating thing he had ever experienced. Yeah, that's a real power play. The way I looked right into his eyes, he had never felt so dominated in his life, like a monkey shitting in its hand and throwing it. Needless to say, we got very quickly comfortable with intimate things like this after. Even though we've broken up since then and it's been a few years, I'm still to this day just as embarrassed. He handled that so well. I think I'd see your glare and hear the squeaky bubbly noises in my nightmares. The tone of the next few posts will be a bit different. I'm sure by this point you've had enough scat stories for a lifetime. Mysterious things happened in the desert. My friend's aunt works in an oil field and his role requires him to be in the desert most of the time. I'm not sure exactly who they're referring to here, but I'm going to assume it's the friend they mentioned. One time he was having a break, so he sat with a few of his co-workers in the open desert to chill. While they were chatting, all of them heard noises of horses running in their direction. They all thought that each of them were being delusional until one of them asked if they could hear it too, so they freaked out. The noises kept getting dangerously closer, but there was no sign of a single horse. Nothing. The sheik among them told them to quickly get up. These sounds are warnings from jinn, since they might be sitting in their area. In case you're wondering what that is, like I was, a sheik is a leader of an Arabian tribe, and a jinn, like some of you may know, is a historical myth believed as part of the Muslim doctrine of supernatural beings created by Allah before humans. It seems like after this they left the area, and unfortunately the story doesn't go any further. Another story is that he was once sitting with 3 co-workers in a different location, but also in the desert. While one of his co-workers were talking, he saw someone tilting his faceless head from behind a tree to look at them, then hiding behind it again. He thought he was imagining things, but it happened 3 times. He was sure he saw it, but wasn't sure if they would believe him. He looked to the man next to him, and that man seemed afraid, and looking at the same spot. He asked him if he saw it too, and he said yes. They got up and left that place. While these both obviously seem quite far-fetched, deserts occupy about 1/3 of the land in the world, so I think it's very likely there could be some things hidden away there beyond our understanding. I mean, I honestly didn't even know that there were trees in the desert. My grandma's evil sister stole £500,000 off her when she needed it most. This next one's quite a long one, but it invoked a lot of emotion in me, so I think you might appreciate it. Backstory: my grandma's side of the family have never been in the money, so to speak, at any time in their life, and that's how everyone on my grandma's side grew up as well. My grandma used to be an accountant, but quite a few years ago she was made redundant from her job, and the work environment nowadays requires degrees and qualifications that she just couldn't do at this point in her life. My mother was just 19 when she gave birth to me, which was a shock to everyone in the family. and it meant a whole lot of responsibility. Unfortunately, my grandma's husband died a year prior, meaning I never got to meet him, so during this time she was still mourning her deceased husband. It was also just a month after giving birth to me that my mother relapsed and ended up on a psychiatric unit a month after. After she left the unit, she was deemed too mentally unstable to look after me. With this, I was placed under the care of my grandmother, who was unfortunately getting evicted at the time. Lots of unfortunatelys. After all the evictions and having to move into a flat, her mother died. This wasn't a massive inconvenience to her though, as she didn't really like her mother. My grandmother knew that she was to inherit a bit, but didn't grasp how much it really was. My grandma grew up in a modest semi-detached 3-bedroom house, which wasn't all that much back then, but as of now, and inflation, has absolutely skyrocketed in value with renovations and just the market, sending it to £500,000. Lots of money. Money I could never imagine having. On top of that, a farm in Scotland that added about another 400k onto the board, and around 1 to 200k in antiques and cash. Shortly before my great-grandma passed on, she told me my grandma was due 50 to 60% of her will, and that she would leave it to her and her sister to decide how much each person got. My grandma said that she would be happy with as little as 30% of the will, which her sister happily agreed on. Unfortunately, her sister is as my grandma puts it, a pig. A snobby, bratty, spoilt pig. My grandma tried all she could, unbeknownst to my great aunt, to put the will in my grandma and her sister's name, but for some reason the will was only put in her sister's name, and my great grandma's dying wish was that my grandma got 50%. So guess what happened as soon as she died? As soon as she died, my great aunt, who already had a successful business and a rich husband, stole all the money. But unfortunately she didn't legally steal the money, as the will was written in her name. All the money my grandma was meant to be given, stolen. Over £500,000. Money that would have solved all of their problems at the time. Like I mentioned, my grandma had a feeling she would be ignorant and do such a thing. My grandma immediately tried to take it to court, but as I said, it was all in her sister's name. It doesn't even go as far as the money, but actual things that belonged to my grandma, such as her childhood dolls, almost all of her stuff from guides, was sold off by her sister. Even the family Bible, something that kept track of all of my grandma's life events from 0 to 18, sold. Every little family memorabilia was sold. As of now, my great aunt, who we know as Auntie Fatty, has retired. She retired at 45 and currently sits in a house estimated to be around £2 million. Everyone cut contact with her, so the only good thing that came out of this is that she doesn't have a family anymore. I'd sleep happy knowing that that actually meant something to her. But who can be that evil and careless to their own family if they actually want a family who loves them? As for what happened with us, well, we were left broke. My grandma still couldn't find a job, forcing her to go on to benefits. We now live in a council house, and my brother and mother living opposite us. My grandma provides all she can for us, and I have never and will never forget this. I only recently figured out the exact amount of money and assets my grandma was due, and it just makes me so furious. My great aunt also knew about the situation with my grandma and my mother's finances, and she never gave us anything. And the sheer cheek she had, complaining she did nothing wrong and it's what her mother would have wanted. To this day, she still tries to contact us. We never ever will go contact with her again until she decides to give us the £1 million that's ours, that we need. How delusional and gullible does she think you are? If she wants to pretend to care about what your great-grandma wanted, why blatantly disregard it with her actions? She honestly deserves to live and die alone and unloved. I hate to be so cruel, but someone so rich and well off stealing £1 million from people who need it, then blaming it on the person who it belonged to. Where's Robin Hood when you need him? Even if the will was in her name, even if it was all actually supposed to go to her, how could you be so cruel to your family? Wow, that was long. Sorry about that. I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any great stories, why not put them in the comments and I can include them in a future episode. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I won't have to come to your house and make you.